Hello everyone, today I will show you how to make images for the Flex Picture Ebook format using the plugin for Adobe Illustrator that makes the process of creating images way easier. In another video we showed you how to bundle them together into an ebook, and here you will learn how to create the images themselves. First, let me show you how these images look. The main feature is that every illustration is a vector graphic that features 5 levels of complexity, increasingly getting more accessible. Traditionally, all of this was created through programming, but the plugin we developed allows you to just make them inside of Adobe Illustrator and exporting them to the right format without having to code or leave the program. It also makes the drawing process way more orderly. The first step is downloading the zip. In it you will find 2 folders. To install this in your copy of Adobe Illustrator, you will need to pull the files into Adobe's roaming folder. To start, you press Windows plus R and type in %appdata% and you press enter. Go to the Adobe folder. Check if there is a folder called CEP. If you installed plugins in the past, then you should have one. If not, please create it. In this new directory, you make a subfolder called extensions. Here you can drag in the files from the zip. If you now open Adobe Illustrator, you should be able to open the plugin by going to Window, Extension, and then just clicking them. If this does not work, you might have the wrong version of Illustrator installed. The extensions only work on versions 27 and 28, so if you want to use it, you will potentially need to either upgrade or downgrade your version of Illustrator. You can do this through the Creative Cloud. Now you will see 2 windows, one in Portrait and one in Landscape View. I suggest you put them on different screens as it gives you more space to work because you can't really make them smaller. Okay, just a quick overview of what they do. Here on this window you can set on which level of complexity a layer will be shown. Each eye here corresponds to the level and whether or not it is visible there. This will also apply to all of the sublayers. Clicking here under C will make a group of layers, or like that they are clickable in the final version. This window here is the preview window. You can click on the numbers to see what a complexity level looks like. It will also hide all the layers that are not being used for that layer. I will show this once we have drawn something, and I think it will be more understandable then. To make a new file, click on the new file in the portrait mode window. This automatically opens a new file that has the right dimensions for the Flex ebook format. You don't have to do this if you want to use bigger or smaller images, but I suggest doing it this way and keeping everything as is, because this is the only way we can guarantee that it will properly work once you import the images into a book. As I will be adapting a drawing, I'm using a scan of it as a background. It will serve as a rough guide. We've created a theoretical companion to image adaptation as well as a practical handbook. So if you want to go more in depth into the topic, I suggest you check them out first. What I will be showing you today is based on this practical handbook. So I think that having it open while working is faster than having to look at the video. So in the first layer, you can just sort of trace the image. Try to break shadows that are made up through scratches or hatch marks, these kind of lines, into color shapes. You can leave most of the detail as long as you're smart about your lines. They should be as straight as possible while being pulled through. Also, every object should have an outline to make it easier to identify. Try to be smart about grouping stuff into layers. These textures, for example, can be grouped under one layer, making it easier to hide when we go to the next level of abstraction. Try to name everything in such a way that you will remember later what is what. After you're done, you can start tagging the levels in the layer matrix. I will assign everything that we just did to the first level. If you click here on the 1, everything should still be here. If you click on the 2, which means show me all of the elements of complexity level 2, everything should be hidden. And even the corresponding layers should get removed. I will start off by tagging all of the layers that I want to carry over from the first level. I will leave everything but remove the shadows. I will also not leave the texture to get rid of most of the visual clutter on screen. I will also remove some background elements to clean the scene up further. I will leave the shoe as it counts towards environmental storytelling. To me, it shows that we're in his parents' living room and that his mom forgot her stiletto here. But I think the newspaper can be removed. It is very important when deciding what you will remove to think about what an image is saying and what elements say what. Like always, ask yourself which elements are necessary to tell the main story, which elements put us into an environment. By kind of ranking the importance to the story in your head, it becomes easier to select what to remove at what point. Here the newspaper maybe tells the story of we're in the living room because that's where his dad reads the newspaper, but it's not really necessary for the overall story. The second layer is mostly about reduction and simplification, but you can leave some detail. A mistake that I made while recording this and while drawing this was that I didn't really think about silhouettes, in the beginning at least. Let's look at the bed, for example. Here in the original drawing, the silhouette of the head becomes part of the wing, which means that it is a lot less readable than it could be. If we separate those two elements, one silhouette clearly reads as wing and one as the head. This is something you should think about from the start and could be put on layer 1 as you don't have to fix anything later. And you can just reuse more parts of the drawing in the lower levels. To this level I will carry over the drawing of a character and his bed, but I won't need the desk. Here on this level we will try to get rid of all perspective. If you look at the desk you see that it has a vanishing point, which we will now try to get rid of. Everything on this level is seen from the front, without any perspective distortion. It is completely flat. This means that square objects in a perspective grid all have 90-degree angles now. I will now redraw the table to fit this demand. I will also redraw the vase, because you could previously see the inside of it, and now that we look straight on at it, we can't see it anymore. I will now also try to get rid of the woman's shoe, as it is a nice detail but not necessary. It tells the story of the environment but does not contribute to the overall story of the image. We still want to communicate the environment that our character is currently in, but for it to be identifiable as a living room, it is enough to have the desk, the lamp and the vase, I think. Getting rid of the vase and the lamp would make it harder to read as a living room, so I will leave them for now. We will also get rid of the texture of the oven mittens, the color of his hair and the dark texture in the bed wings. At this step we will remove the environment completely. I will copy our character over to slightly move him to the center now that he is no longer standing on the desk. I will also greatly remove the detail of the characters by getting rid of some lines. Here it is important to think about the details that make the character still identifiable. Everything that is not necessary to identify the character can be removed. I will leave some minor details that are made up of big lines like the nose or his collar. The rest I will remove. If it is too fine or too small, it has to go. Now we get rid of even those details, remove them. Everything that is not an eye has to go. Everything that is a colored shape can stay, but if you can group them together into bigger shapes, please do so. The most important thing for this step is color contrast. I suggest you check every time two colors touch and you're not sure if the contrast is big enough. I will link a checker that helps you with this task. I suggest having a contrast of 4:1, but I think you should go even higher if it is possible. If the contrast is insufficient, that means that you can group those shapes together, or you could color it differently if it is necessary to identify the object. But I suggest always grouping everything if it is possible to group them. For example, the body and the wing of our bed has very low color contrast. We will therefore group it together into one shape. Here we run into the problem that the bed is not identifiable by silhouette alone. At least the head looks weird if the shapes are grouped together like this. To fix it, I suggest breaking your shapes into multiple parts and leaving a gap here. The negative space is sometimes necessary for identification, or at least makes it a lot easier to identify something. Now that we're finished, check if everything is on its proper layer. Every time you click these buttons, all of the other layers should be hidden. So try them out and fix every problem if there is one. Here's the little preview window, you can see how the final result will look like. But it is still a good idea to export it sometimes and check it there. Click on export and the save dialog will open up. Save it somewhere where you can find it later. If you import this file to the book through the FPB builder we showed in the other video, then all should be fine. There are these files you should place into the folder if you want to be able to preview the files here and there through the browser. These files would normally be packaged into your books automatically, but if you want to display them in the browser, you will need them for everything to work properly. Now you are ready to start using them in your books. Thank you for watching.